Hey everybody, it's Austin Hass, and today I'm going to do another video about jazz ride cymbals. So in the last video, I think it was about 3 years ago, I talked about 10 different cymbals that I like to use as jazz rides. And there were a couple crash cymbals in that video, but since then I've sold and bought different cymbals that better fit my needs, and so I thought it'd be fun to just share them and kind of talk about why I changed cymbals. And I have some cymbals that I had modified by cymbal smiths, and so I kind of wanted to talk about that. Back in the last video I made, it was called 10 Jazz Ride Cymbals. I was using a lot of brighter sounding cymbals and really preferred that sound, but I was kind of missing the darkness. But I didn't want cymbals that were too thin and dark, and so I kind of feel like I've got a collection now with a good spread of one of each kind of sound. So I have some bright, some complex, and some really dark, and in between. And I've kind of limited my sizes as well. I had like a 21 and an 18 in the last video, but now I just use 20s and 22s. And then I have some crash cymbals as well that I would consider rideable, but for this video I just want to talk about the ones that are specifically labeled ride. Doesn't mean you can't use a crash cymbal as like a light ride, and I do that all the time, but it's just not what I want to do in this video. So I'm just going to grab these cymbals and kind of talk to you about what I have here. Alright, so this first cymbal is a 20-inch Spizz, and it weighs 1,820 grams, so that's kind of in the lighter weight range for a 20, and it's labeled 20-inch jazz ride. And I don't really know much about Spizz. I tried looking things up online. There's not really a lot of good information about it. It says handmade in Turkey, so I assume it's made in Turkey. And Spizz makes me think of Spizzacchino, who was an Italian cymbal maker from the later 20th century, I believe. You know, because now there's kind of a boom of independent cymbal smiths. I think he was one of the first early ones to really do that. But this cymbal, I think for sure, is completely hand-hammered, just because of the way that it looks. You know, there's definitely no consistency in the hammering. It's very thoughtful, but it's not consistent. And the sound of this is very complex, very airy. Being in that thinner weight, it has a great crash, and it's not too curved, so, but it's not too flat either, so there's plenty of stick sound. And yeah, I think this might be one of the best cymbals I've ever owned. So I'm really lucky to have it, and here's what it sounds like. Alright, so the next 20-inch cymbal I have is this 20-inch K Constantinople medium ride, Zildjian K Constantinople. So yeah, 20 inches, it weighs 1,890 grams, which for a 20, you know, the Spizz is 1,820. This is 1,890, so not that much heavier, still kind of in that thin weight range, so I don't really understand labeling it medium, other than maybe just the way that they shape the cymbal. It is medium, but to me this is a thin cymbal, and I actually like it a lot because it has great clean stick sound, It's not too dirty compared to like the Spizz. It's a very clean sound. And I actually learned, I did a gig a few weeks ago, and I had this cymbal and the Spizz in my cymbal case on top of each other, and noticed the Spizz was undersized. But I measured them, and the Spizz is actually exactly 20, and this is 20 and a half inches. So a little oversized, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, but this is a great cymbal, great bell sound, just great all-around ride cymbal. So here's what this one sounds like. Alright, the last 20-inch cymbal I have is this A Custom 20-inch flat ride. You've all seen this one in the previous video. And this one weighs 2,268 grams, so kind of on the medium, for sure, medium weight. It is drilled for 2 rivets. So in the previous video, I had 2 rivets in it, but I recently took them both out just because I wanted a more staccato flat ride sound, and so that kind of did that for me. Yeah, A Custom, super glassy kind of sound, very clean and articulate. And this does crash a little bit. It's kind of trendy now to have flat rides that crash, where a long time ago it was more just about the ride sound and not the crash. And so this one I feel like has a decent crash sound. It's kind of unique. And even though it's A Custom, it's not too shimmery. It's just the right balance, in my opinion. So, yeah, here's the A Custom flat ride. Alright, so that's all the 20s, and so now everything else is going to be 22 inches. Sort of. So this was also in my previous video. This was the Bosphorus 22-inch traditional thin ride with 3 rivets. But I got in touch with the cymbalsmith Timothy Roberts, who is based in North Carolina, I believe, and shipped this to him and had him modify for me. So he shaved off about 100 grams. It was in like the 2,500 gram range. And he brought it down to 2,430 grams. He wrote it here on the back. just lathing the top. And when I sent it to him, I asked him to give me something kind of like a Bill Stewart Ride It kind of sound, you know, a little more dry, complex, more stick kind of caw sound as they describe it. And so if you all know the Dry Complex series that Zildjian made, the K series many years ago, those are designed with Bill Stewart, and those had a raw ring around the edge to kind of keep the cymbal controlled and contained. And so what he did for me on this was lathe the top, and then lathed from here to about, he left about this much of the cymbal, the original cymbal, intact, so only lathed in the inner part. And so that did control the sound a lot, but it kind of prevented the cymbal from crashing a whole lot. And he also rehammered the entire thing, gave it a lot more complexity, which was great. But that extra ring of material kind of kept it choked and closed off, which was on me because I didn't really know what I wanted. Tim did exactly what I asked him to do, but I later decided I should probably get that extra bit of material removed. So I found our local cymbalsmith here in Denver, Colorado, Ryan Hayden, who also makes fantastic cymbals, modifies them, great jazz drummer in town as well, and he lathed that extra bit off. So we went from the original weight, I think, was 2536 to 2430, and then Ryan brought it down to 2,374 grams. So not a ton of weight removal, but enough to really open the cymbal up. It's a lot more lighter now on the stick. The crash is way easier. The hammering was left intact, so it's just a little more complex, a little more rich sounding. And then I had the 3 rivets in it, but I used this on a gig the other week and felt like I was having a hard time hearing this in this specific room. It was a more live room, and this just wasn't very clear with the 3 rivets, so I took them out. I just have the one right here, and that seems to still give me, you know, enough sustain and sizzle, especially with the brush, but you hear more just stick, which is kind of what I wanted. So this is a Timothy Roberts, Ryan Hayden modification, and it's ended up being one of my favorite cymbals now. So here's the Bosphorus traditional modified ride. Cool, so next I have this Zildjian K Constantinople Renaissance ride. And so this was a cymbal, it's in the K Con family, of course, but what makes it different is they use more what they call the K hammering. Can't quite tell you the difference between all of that, but you'll notice it's a different look compared to the 20-inch K Constantinople I have. And this also has some kind of over hammering marks here, as well as this cluster hammering. There's 4 cluster hammers. And then we have a raw bell underneath. And so this one's 2,568 grams. So kind of in that medium thin, medium weight, but I kind of intentionally bought this one at that weight range because I find that the really thin cymbals just don't cut enough in a jazz setting, which I know kind of sounds weird because you tend to want to be more blending. But I think just with the right stick and the right touch, you can achieve that with these cymbals that are kind of in the more medium range. So that's why I picked it. And I just think it's a cool sounding cymbal. And this is, I think it said it's a 22. Again, like the other K Con, this one's a little oversized. I think it's more like 22.5 inches. So kind of cool. And yeah, so here's the Renaissance 22. Alright, so then next I have this 22-inch Istanbul Mehmet Legend Dry Ride with 2 rivets. And so this is kind of, the rest of the cymbals have been kind of more, I want to say on the brighter side. They're not super dark, really clear. So this is my one of 2 cymbals, I should say, that fulfill the kind of darker sound that I wanted to have. So this one, yeah, 22 inches. You can see it's got this kind of really intense hammering on it. The profile's pretty flat, so that's where you get that kind of darker sound. Pretty flat bell as well. And this one weighs 2,431 grams, so a nice medium thin weight. And then I picked 2 rivets in the cluster, just because I didn't want, because it's a darker cymbal, I didn't want a whole bunch of rivets already covering up the more mellow sound. And then I picked this specific weight range to kind of keep the stick, but still be dark. It's kind of hard to explain in words, but when you hear it, you'll kind of notice the stick stand is still there, but it's a much more subdued cymbal. Yeah, 22 inches, Istanbul Mehmet Legend Dry Ride. All right, we're on the home stretch here. So this is a Dream Dark Matter Flat Earth ride. And kind of a little story about this one. So this is sort of a flat ride. It has this little mini bell. And I bought this because I wanted a flat ride effect without not having a bell, because I do like having a bell on cymbals. And obviously flat rides don't. But this particular cymbal, I bought it just as is. Used it for about a year and noticed as I was playing on it, there's some weird hums coming out of it. So I, again, took this to my local cymbalsmith here in Denver, Ryan Hayden, and told him kind of what I thought was going on with it, hearing these hums, and so he helped kind of rework it a bit, and he did some hammering to kind of get out those hum spots. In doing that, he ended up finding other imperfections in the process, and so it ended up being a bit of a longer project, but it was well worth the wait. You know, now the hums are much more under controlled and blended into the cymbal. He also reinforced the bell with some hammering underneath, so the bell, I like where it's at now. And yeah, the reason the cymbal's black, according to Dream, they heat the cymbals with fire or something like that, and it gets this black. It's black on both sides, so they kind of just char the cymbal. Not sure if that's actually how they do that, but that's what the website says. And then I have 3 rivets in it. Because this is such a dry cymbal as is, the 3 rivets don't overpower the stick sound, because it's just so dry, because the bell is so small. With that smaller bell, you lose a lot of the crashability, and it just becomes more similar to a flat ride. But this one actually does also crash very nice. It's kind of a fast crash. And this one's undersized. It's about 21 3/4 inches, I think. So it's almost 22 inches, and they label it 22, but it's just under. And this one weighs 2,417 grams. So you can kind of see a theme in the 22s. The weight range I like is in the 2,500 gram range, where it feels like there's enough body and just not so much loss in that stick sound and everything. So Dream Flat Earth ride modified by Ryan Hayden. Alright, and finally the last cymbal I have here, you all love it. Some of you actually probably hate it, is the Zildjian 22-inch Swish knocker, kind of modeled after a Mel Lewis style cymbal. Mel Lewis also used kind of more traditional China cymbals with the kind of cone-shaped bell, but he also had a cymbal very similar to this with this kind of normal cymbal bell. Yeah, even though it looks like a China cymbal, this is a ride cymbal. You can crash it, of course, but works great as a ride. When I had it in my last video, I definitely had more rivets. I don't know how many. It's drilled for 20, which is just too much. I never liked this cymbal with that many rivets. So I have 5 in here. And even that might be too many, I don't know. But yeah, it's a cool sounding cymbal. Great for big band, you know, sax solo stuff, or if you're just looking for a cool effect. This is a great cymbal, and this one weighs 2,389 grams. So the Zildjian 22-inch Swish knocker. So much sizzle. All right, well, those are my 8 jazz-oriented ride cymbals. They're kind of, you know, I use them for all different styles of music, and that was kind of another thing is with my old cymbals, everything was so pigeonholed into certain things that I was liking, and so this is a much better spread. I can use them for rock, funk, pop type stuff, and of course jazz, and I feel like I have a good array without having more than 8 cymbals, which I don't think I personally need. So yeah, I appreciate y'all watching. If you have any questions about any specific cymbals or the people I mentioned who helped modify my cymbals for me, please leave a comment. I'll put the gear description in the description below, but just to really quickly run down, I have these Bosphorus Masters 14-inch hi-hats. This is a Ludwig Black Magic 14x5 brass snare with die-cast tubes, and then the bass drum is a Gretsch Catalina Club 18x14 kick drum. Snare has a UV1 on top, and then I have a G1 with a felt strip on the kick drum. Yeah, so any questions you have, please leave a comment. I really appreciate you taking a listen and watching my videos. Please leave a like and a comment and subscribe for more content, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.